Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live edition of 320 Zim Pilot as we once again take the ToLiss Airbus A321 for our flight. And it's a short flight today. We're going to go from here in Frankfurt over to Amsterdam, where there is a VATSIM event, which would probably explain why there are so many KLM aircraft around us heading the same way. I'm hoping this is working for you. I will have the comments up, so let me know if it isn't. There is a little bit of a delay, as I'm sure you guys are used to with these sorts of things. And I'm just trying to work out if I've got it. I do apologize for this. This was just basically a bit of a test as we try it for the first time. Look at all these airplanes that have arrived. It's going to make this a bit difficult. My computer is struggling a bit. Fantastic. So, sorry, a bit of a chattery start, but we shall get ourselves underway shortly. And thank you very much for joining me. As I always say in these things, this is not for any real world use. It's just a bit of fun for ourselves. Normally, I have complete control over the simulator when I do it in my videos at home. So I can't promise there won't be any mistakes today, but we'll just get through it as best we can. And hopefully, they're using one runway in Amsterdam. It should be a bit of fun when we get there. It's quite a busy airport. So let's have a look. So on the flight deck, I'm pretty much set up and ready to go as usual for the start of these videos. Let's get the passengers, the APU going. We've fueled up and I will show you the flight plan we're expecting to fly. We are here in Frankfurt, parked out on these remote stands. I've been told runway 25 center for departure. Nice and convenient, just behind us, short taxi out. After that, we're flying to the north on a Marin departure of some kind. We'll find out which that is soon. But effectively, a bit of a left turn. We'll make these restrictions and then fly north from there. If we go to our navigation display, plan and zoom in, as usual. And you'll see our route taking us north all the way up. Maybe zoom out a bit more than that. All the way up to Amsterdam, arriving in from the east on a Norku arrival. Quite a short flight. And like I say, it should be busy. I put on a bit of extra fuel for our arrival into Amsterdam. Not sure which runway they're using. They said one, quite unusual for that airport, but it'd be curious to see which one they choose. Great, so that's available. Get rid of the ground power. And you guys will see me firsthand trying to manage my way through all the menus and so on. There we go. I'm also not used to having that overlay at the top of the screen. I'm hoping it works for you guys and gives you some good information as we go, but I may end up hiding stuff behind it by accident. So do let me know if that becomes a problem. And I can see from Captain FR that the audio is working. Thanks for that. Excellent. Great. So one last thing I haven't done, I just wanted to go through it with you guys, would be the performance. So we're going to get our clearance from air traffic now, and then we'll run the performance so we know we've got the right runway in. So let's see if I can get this right. I usually get in some sort of trouble on VATSIM when I talk to air traffic control. Frankfurt Tower, hello again. Lufthansa 745, stand Victor 110, 321 QNH 1017, request clearance Amsterdam. Clear to Amsterdam, runway 25 center, Marin 6 Mike, score 2153, Lufthansa 745. Excellent, so that's worked. Good to see you as well. Thanks for joining me. We've got Ariel F82, Captain Ryanair, Michael, yep, all regular viewers, Fly24, thank you very much for coming, and Liz05 with extra fuel, a good idea. Yep, extra fuel should be a good idea today. Right, so we've got our clearance. Let's get that set up. Of course, being Frankfurt, which is a really complicated airport to operate in real life, it's got loads of different runways and charts and departures. So he said 25 center. There we go, 25 center. and he wants us on the Marin 6 mic, which is going to be a more traditional SID. Oh wow, I haven't seen that before. I guess that's it calculating what it's going to manage. So we can insert that and check that that's connected up. Yep, that seems to have worked. And we can go to this chart. That's no use, of course. And yeah, operating out of Frankfurt, as you can see, loads and loads of different options for charts and so on. You'll also hear we got startup clearance straight away, which in a lot of German airports is quite common. So we'll just get our push clearance. Normally they could be on different frequencies, hence why they do it that way around. Here we go, Marin 6 mic. I understand maybe you guys can't hear simulator sound or ATC. Okay, let me work on that. Thanks. Okay, I think I found why. Hopefully that's working for you now. Sorry about that. Thank you for pointing that out. Anyway, he said Marin 6 mic. I'll fill you in on what we missed. And a squawk of 2153, which we'll put in now.
And what was our squawk for Echo Bravo Golf?
2153. Thanks as well for all your help, you guys. I think that with this on, maybe we'll have a chance of seeing some other traffic. We'll see. Okay.
Squawk 7000 for Echo
There's the Marin 6 mic. Let's get the performance loaded up. We'll do a nice flap 1 takeoff. I'm still not entirely convinced about the speeds for flap 2 and 3 takeoffs in the ToLiss performance calculator. I know there's some discussion on the forum about it. So anyway, 25 center, no shift, flaps 1, flaps 1.
Squawk 7000 for Golf Whiskey Tango Echo.
We're not using toga, so our flex is going to be 39. That's 39. 160 for V1, 160 for rotate. So nice long runway, no performance restrictions. That's sort of what we'd expect. And 163. 224 clean. So to give you an idea, let's see, are there any speed limits for us today? Yet 200 knots, so we'll be flat 1 as we head over here and then accelerate at some point after the turn. All pretty reasonable, quite heavy today, so we're 66 tons of fuel, plus 9 tons of fuel. More than we need. The alternate's Heathrow, so that's further on than Amsterdam, obviously, so it's quite a bit of extra fuel to get there. How's that audio working now? Is it roughly balanced right? I hope so.
Sierra or either Lima, out to the left, and then we'd like to just go VF Egelsbach.
And yeah, thanks to Alibert Empire for your comments. So hopefully that is working for you now.
Golf Tango Echo behind is landing Lufthansa, line up runway 25 left and wait behind.
Great. So, sorry, like I say, apologies for the pauses. This is entirely new to me. There's a whole load of software to set up to even get this far, and hopefully I've managed and we'll struggle through. So we got our start up. I think it's time we get pushback. What I'll do first is we'll get it first, work out which way they'll go, and then we'll get our better pushback. Tag to give us the right idea. Lufthansa 745, request push.
Lufthansa 745, pushback approved facing west.
Pushback approved facing west, Lufthansa 745. Okay. Now, classic for me. Wants us to face west, so that'll be that way, which makes sense where we're going. So something like that. Onto the taxiway.
Ground to cockpit. Plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you're ready.
And this always takes a bit longer than I think. So
ground to cockpit. Toes driving up.
In the meantime. Oh, God, I lost a bit of lag there. The beacon would go on. Make sure we've got the APU bleed for the passengers, some air. Check our thrust levers are idle. Windows all closed. Flight door to lock. Transponder to transponder. And I'll start this now because I always forget to do it later. In real life, we'd start that when the brakes are released. Excellent. Here's our tag. Thanks for the tip on this, guys. It's really useful. Darren Fox, thanks for joining. Yeah, it's. Wasn't sure if anyone would actually come along and watch, so thank you guys for coming. I was expecting this to be a bit of a dry run, trying to work it all out. So yeah, thanks for joining us. Again, do keep the feedback coming if anything isn't working. There we go. I like this livery, by the way. What do you guys think? I'm a big fan of these older liveries. That's why I use the.
All doors and hatches are closed. Ready to connect. Set parking brake.
Let's check that parking brake is set. Yes, it is. Okay, so he should connect. Whoops. Yeah, big fan of these liveries. That's why I use the default prototype A321. And I like the line down the windows as well. I think that's why that makes these retro liveries really work nicely. Here we go.
Frankfurt FedEx 509.
Great animation.
ILS 25 left.
And I guess he'll lift us up a little bit.
FedEx 509.
This is why in real life you'd never get your push start clearance until you were ready to go. I suppose there's a way to modify the push after you've connected the tug in better pushback. You guys will know more about that than me.
Now connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
Okay, here we go. Every time I do this, it tends to wobble and we find the airplane shoot all over the place. So let's see if we can make this work. Brakes released. Time is going.
Starting pushback, and you may start the engines.
Fantastic. Great. Well, let's start the engines. Number 2. Start the timer. I did have a question saying why do we time? And it's because we can still monitor it. FADEC will do most of the work, but we can still get an idea if the startup is working. Usually within 30 seconds on the IAE engines, I would expect to see some sort of fuel going in, and as soon as the fuel's going in, I want to see the EGT rising, because that fuel needs to be lit up by the igniters. If it isn't, it could be that the igniter that's in use is bad. It's using igniter A. It would alternate which igniter it uses. If it struggles with one, it would just start the other one automatically. It's a great system, the FADEC, so it usually covers most things. But as ever, we like to monitor these things as we go.
Lufthansa 170, requesting taxi.
Yes, Michael, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I've had trouble with the
via November 5 Hotel November.
pushback tug
November 5
before, as you've seen in my videos. So there's a good start in that engine. As soon as we get available, we can start the other one, or when the N2 grey box goes. So older Airbuses don't have that available message. It does depend. Now this is the slowest pushback I've ever had. At least it's safer than some of my previous attempts. There we go.
Lufthansa Cargo 8116, Frankfurt Tower, good day.
Excellent.
Cleared to
I'm quite a new
Amsterdam,
convert to X-Plane as well,
departure,
actually. I was using
runway 18,
FSX for a
flight
long time.
walk
I never swapped to prepared
5061.
or P3D, but I gotta say, I find X-Plane amazing. Really, really nice. Especially like these shadows in the flight deck. The lighting seems to be really spot on. And things like the wingtip vortices and stuff we've seen in other videos. Yeah, really
Lufthansa
pleased.
Cargo 8116, read back correct. Lufthansa Cargo 8411 is located Lima 13 Windows taxi to Fox 215.
That's worked. As soon as we get our available message, there it is.
Lufthansa Cargo
ignore.
8411 taxi.
We're not using APU anymore. And it's quite okay to do this while being pushed back, as long as you don't miss the important bits. And certainly don't accidentally set the brake. Gross XCG 27.2. See if I can get over there.
Echo Bravo Golf, report further intention.
It's funny, even in the real airplane, this is actually
Operation
slightly
complete.
harder to see than
Please
the
set parking brake.
We're just gonna follow the other
Okay, set parking brake. There we go.
Echo Bravo Golf,
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
directly via Lima, wind 190
Tow man
degrees
is
for knots,
disconnecting.
runway 25 left, clear for takeoff.
Excellent.
Clear to take off 25 left and roll.
Yes, you have to activate terrain, but weather, is it always on the ND? That's
Frankfurt
a great
hello
question
again.
from
Yes,
Martin. Thanks for joining us, Martin. Yes, you
you
have to turn on the radar, but as long as this is turned off, like that, if I turn on the weather radar, it will appear using this panel down here. But as long as I'm not using it, if it's switched off, it will just stay off. And on lots of the new airplanes, it will say WXR off. It will tell you that. So if I turn on the radar now, it will work and I'll see it displayed. It doesn't seem to work too well unless there's really big thunderstorms around an X-plane. In real life, it's quite sensitive. It will pick up rain and any sort of reasonable sized clouds, so it can be useful.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the right. I'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
Excellent. Very nice pushback crew, as always. And I recently found out that they seem to be local dialects or accents, so it always seems to be speaking from whichever country you're in, which I really like.
Uniform current startup approved.
I missed
Clear
which side
destination
is
via
it going.
Niki 9 Lima departure, runway 18, squawk
There it
2147.
goes. Get off to the right.
Cleared. Lima
let's not
included, we are
forget to
Nick 9
finish this
Lima,
with our flight
out of 18 and squawk 2147.
This is always a problem.
868
That bar is
Delta.
perfectly in place. There's the hand signal.
Information
done.
uniform current,
Excellent.
startup approved, cleared.
Right, to
Jersey
save
via
embarrassment,
Zebra, Van Lima
I am going
departure,
to
runway
use
18,
X checklist.
2150.
Like I said, there is some differences with how I would expect us to operate the airplane.
Clear to Jersey, Super 1 Lima
But
departure, runway
it does have its
18,
advantages.
2150,
Might save us from embarrassment here.
jet
So next is for
48
taxi.
Delta.
Excellent.
Jet lift for Delta.
So what I'm going to do is I don't
correct.
want to head off into. Oh, it's only a short taxi. We've only got to get over there.
Lufthansa
If we look down
170,
here,
holding short.
It's to Lima 1. So I'm going to. Yeah, it's just one taxiway. I'm going to do the flight control check now to make sure that we're all sorted
Yeah,
and ready
Lufthansa
to go.
170, I've on
So
you and
full
must go.
left.
Hold position, call you back shortly.
Full right.
FedEx 509,
Neutral.
wind 190
Full
degrees,
down.
4 knots, 25 left, clear to land.
Pull up. Neutral.
Clear to land 25
Rudder.
left,
Full
FedEx 509.
left. And
Golf Tango Echo Unicorn
Full
1 to
right.
destinate. Bye bye.
neutral.
1 to decimate for Golf Tango Echo.
Excellent. Now we do that for both side sticks in the real airplane because we want to check that both are working and actually moving the controls as we want. And as I said before, it's based on this screen. You see this cross moving, but that's just an input that doesn't show us that flight controls are working. Okay, so what have we missed?
Taxi holding point runway 25
Try to tell me to get out of the way.
November
And I'll
5,
just-
Lima,
I should check.
Lima
I
5.
had 5,000 feet set. Is it still true on this departure?
Taxiing to holding point 2%.
That was 70, there we go. Good
November
check
5,
that.
Lima and Lima 5.
So that's going to be up to a standard as soon as we get in the air.
FedEx 509, wind
Yeah,
16
amazing. Same
degrees,
same
4
name
knots,
departure, but
runway
they got a slightly
25
different
left.
flight level clearance, probably because of the
Clear to land
runways.
25 left,
Also
FedEx
worth checking,
509.
are we going to actually make these restrictions? Yes, there's no amber. It would see an amber star if it didn't think we'd make it. Engines will be warm very soon. So that's flight controls. Let's do the rest. Let's get the weather radar on. There's no one around in front of us particularly. That I've been told that by putting that to on, we might get to see some traffic on the TCAS, which should be very good. Let's see if that can work.
Silveros,
Because I haven't managed to make that. Oh, there we go. Fantastic. That was a great tip. Again, thanks to you guys for being able to bring this stuff up.
Genoa via Aniki 9 Lima departure.
Yeah, Michael, exactly.
One
I've
runway
just seen your message that
135.
that's worked. Yep, and we're on TARA now. I mean, in real life, we do that at some point during the taxi out, so it would be on XPDR as we push back to tell our traffic we're moving, and then TARA when we go in. Okay, let's get taxi.
Silveros, 999, negative, Aniki 9 Lima departure.
Aniki 9 Lima departure. Silveros 999.
Is 999 read back correct?
Tower Data Sierra
Dave.
Victor, request push and start.
Delta Sierra Victor pushback startup approved.
Lufthansa 745 request taxi.
Lufthansa 745, taxi holding point runway 25 center via Lima, Lima 1.
Taxi holding point 25 center via Lima, Lima 1. Lufthansa 745. Excellent. Lima, Lima 1. So, that was as we wanted. Straight ahead. First left will be to Lima 1. Right, so what do we do first? Well, we're going to get our turn-offs and taxi lights on, make ourselves visible. A good look all around, left and right.
Lufthansa 170, wind 160 degrees, 4
And
knots,
release
runway
the
25
brakes.
center, cleared for takeoff.
25 center,
Now we've
clear
done
to
our
takeoff
little
for
flow.
Lufthansa 170.
We'll just get moving. We'll do a brake check, and then we can do the last few bits there. So brake check, we're looking on this little panel, make sure that we don't see any pressure rises. If it does, that means the system is using the alternate brakes. There you go, it works. We don't have to come to a stop for the brake check, we're just checking that it does something and these don't activate. Okay, what else do we need to do? So the radar went on, that went to TARA. Maximum auto brake. Ding the cabin and take off config. There we go. Yeah, quite a busy airport. I wonder how many KLMs will be following there. I wasn't sure which airport to start from really for our
Silveros
flight to
999, startup approved, then sets quad
all the way to Amsterdam, seeing as it was going to be an event today. I think quite a few people are doing it, so I thought it'd be fun to try the Lufthansa, and I'm, like I say, a big fan of this livery.
Echo Bravo Golf Unicorn
So-
1 to destinate, bye bye.
Nice outside view. I do apologise, I don't, in my videos I try to edit out the constant
Lufthansa 745, line up runway 25 center and wait.
life await 25 centre, and that's 745.
FedEx 509 on
Any more? That's on the left here.
holding point
Yeah, I
on
try to
Frankfurt
edit out my
Center
constant view
via
changes,
Mike,
so
Mike 28.
I may be doing it a bit more at the moment as we try and enjoy the simulator. We clear to line up by Lima 1. That's here.
Holding point 25
So,
center,
entering the runway.
Mike 28.
This is where it gets tricky.
FedEx
25 center. Let's get the lights on. This is where I need more hands.
Lufthansa 5 Tango Mike, request push. Stand Alpha 18.
Put that on. We're going to leave that in norm. Get ourselves around. Let's get onto the runway and then finish that up. Cabin's aware.
Lufthansa 1 Tango Mike, pushback approved.
And it says flight level 70.
Approved 5 Tango Mike.
I'd expect that to say 7,000 feet, to be honest.
745, wind 1816 degrees 4 knots, runway 25 center, clear for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff. 25 center, Lufthansa 745. And there we go. That's why we did everything before entering the runway, so we were ready. All these crossing airplanes.
Here they come for Lufthansa
So
120.
runway looks clear. I'm going to start the timer.
Jet left 68 Delta, Foxtrot 224, fully ready.
I do have trouble with my
Jet
rudders.
left to Trooper
Got to get this
9.
set up. I keep working
Sorry?
on it. I get it way too sensitive. There we go. Okay.
Jet left 68.
Let's take off. We'll do a rolling takeoff, so we can just keep it sort of moving
ready
slowly.
for start, please. Jet left
Jet left 6 Delta, Roger, pushback is approved. Push and start.
And take off.
Push start approved, Jet left 68 Delta.
Land.
Tower Lufthansa cargo.
Flex 39, SOS runway. Water
Lufthansa
thrusters
cargo
on the blue.
8116, taxi holding point runway 18 via November 13 November. I'm taxing on to November 11 low 8116.
And side stick to neutral. 100 knots. And it seems that we're about to get disconnected from VATSIM, which is going to be really embarrassing. I'm not sure why. Hopefully it will improve. Oh no, disaster. Okay guys, let's see what happens. See if I can get it in airborne, and then we'll go from there and rotate. Positive climb, gear up. You'll put it in. Okay, let's just fly the departure and then we'll try and reconnect. Obviously my computer struggled too much there on the takeoff roll.
Charlie Mike, Frankfurt Tower, good day.
Okay.
Wind 160 degrees 4 knots, 25 right, clear to land.
255 right,
Thrust climb, auto thrust.
745, hearing commanded to display, bye bye.
1228, Lieutenant 745, goodbye.
FedEx
1228.
109 across runway 25.
Yeah, it's really struggling. Okay, let's fly the airplane and then we'll have a go at improving that situation.
Report facing.
So we'll leave it at that one for now. And all we're going to do is we're going to fly this departure, 200 knots there. We've just got to watch out, it's going to automatically accelerate soon, so we've got to be careful. I don't know why it's struggling. It must be something to do with the amount I'm doing here with streaming at the same time. Sorry guys, bear with me. We'll hopefully get that sorted soon. Let's just get through the departure. Okay, I understand the volume of AGC might be a bit loud, so I'll sort that out for you shortly. Not that we have any AGC at the moment. See, I knew there'd be loads of teething problems trying to do this. So let's watch carefully. We're going to get it accelerating soon. And this is a risk if you're in managed speed and we accelerate. We don't want to be looking out the window now because, there you go, he's going to now put the nose down for 250. And you could easily forget and miss it, and then you'll bust the flaps pretty quickly. And there we go, we get a nice reminder to set standards. So flaps to 0, set standard. It will flash when you pass the transition level automatically, one of the great things of the Airbus. That can go, you can disarm the spoilers, that's at 0. And don't need those lights anymore, they're attached to the nose wheels, so they are now gone. What frame rate are we getting? We're still just getting a solid 20. Let me try something very briefly. Let's see if I can make this work. I apologise if this all collapses, guys. Hopefully it doesn't. Is that going to be better? 21. That might help us a little bit. Okay, round the turn. We've made 2,500 feet easily. Let's contact 1228. There we go. Right, let's try reconnecting. Oh dear. Still sitting at 20. Okay. No, it's just not. Let's see what we can do about this. I do apologise, guys. What we might have to do is just carry on with the flight as it is. So, what's the temperature outside? 13 degrees. We don't need the engine anti-ice yet. We're going to cruise at flight level 260. So let's set that now. And as I understand it, I'm okay to do that. Would transmit on Unicom if I was connected to VATSIM, but that seems to not be working. So thrust come open climb, and there's our 260 blue. And up we go. Still, if we have the stream working and the overlay working, that's some progress, and then we'll have to work out in the future how I'm going to get this frame rate to improve. Trust the clouds. If anyone has any tips as to how to keep it above 20. It usually runs about 30 to 40 for me. It might be the weather, trying to load all these clouds in, or it could be the streaming software doing too much all at once. Anyway, there's 10 degrees, so let's get the engine anti-ice on. I'm going to get rid of the landing lights as well, because they stick out into the wind, so they rumble in the cabin, and we certainly don't need them now. We're running on our own. In the airplane, some Airbuses, when you put on the anti-ice, you get ignition as well. It automatically sets the engines to ignition, which is the same as doing it down here. If you set that to ignition start, and you get ignition on there, and all that's doing is just constantly running the igniters in the engine in case it risks flaming out for bad weather. The FADEC would cover that anyway, but it's a good backup to have. But we don't need it today. It's usually more heavy rain you'd be worried about. Through flight level 100s. Let's get rid of the lights, definitely. Yeah, I think the passengers can walk around. We haven't seen any turbulence so far. Thanks Daily Bird Empire, lowering the settings, and Darren Fox for the Vulcan. Yeah, I'm hoping Vulcan will improve the situation a bit, although I understand it stops the noise on the ToLiss working for now. We're getting 21 now. I'm worried that if I lower the settings, the whole thing will crash on us, and I don't want to do that to you guys. Let's try something. What doesn't require a reset would be my question. Let's just get world objects to low, and we'll leave it at HDR because I think that's quite nice. Is that going to work? Oh no, I may have really messed things up here. We shall see. Sorry guys. Oh my goodness, this is really embarrassing. This is starting to look like a really amateur stream as we sit and watch the simulator load up in front of us. Fingers crossed this works. I haven't got any particularly heavyweight scenery in the game, certainly not for this route. I've got nothing for Amsterdam or Frankfurt. I know the clouds seem to cause bigger problems. Someone asked earlier, you've got active terrain, but what about weather? No, sorry, later, another question. And, are you using a weather add-on for X-Plane such as Active Sky? No, I don't use anything. I've just been using the absolute basic X-Plane weather, which has worked nicely for me. I think it actually looks really good. It does a really good job of the clouds. Great job with sort of the humidity when you see the wingtip vortices, things like that. They tend to be where I expect them. And the ToLiss seems to use a rain add-on that works for the windscreen, which works really well. But it does definitely put the FPS on that as well. Okay, so this is progressing. I promise it is progressing slowly. Finish asynchronous loading. Captain FR, yeah, 25 FPS. Well, to be honest, 25 is usually an absolute minimum. Oh, thank goodness, the simulator seems to have come alive again. But the clouds really do ruin it. See, something else is limiting it. I think we're getting a bottleneck from the CPU or something like that because of the stream. Anyway, let's carry on with the flight for now. We'll get up in the cruise, and then we'll work it out from there. You can see our level off point somewhere after Marin. And then we're descending. So a little bit of a level segment. There we can set up the charts and play with the settings. I do find that I get the lowest frame rates when we've got weather like this. And yeah, thanks guys. Yeah, leaving it like this. It's beginning to look like it could be the the way forwards for this. But as you can see, I don't think X-Plane needs any special add-ons, to be honest. I did use Rex Extreme Weather for FSX, which I thought was nice. It definitely improved things there. But X-Plane seems to have this nice volumetric effect and these layers, which you can see, and the way you fade in and out of clouds is really good, especially when you're coming out of the bottom of a layer into your approach. I've been really impressed with that many times. Yeah, it just doesn't seem to want to go above 20. I might have to play around with some of my stream settings. Maybe they're causing too much problems. It could just be my computer. I know some of you guys have asked for specs before, but I'm just running on a laptop. It's got an i7, but an old one, a 6700 HQ, and it's a mobile processor. The graphics card's a GTX 1060, but again, it's the mobile GTX 1060. I suspect one of those is going to cause this headache for us. Anyway, here we go. We're working out a bit nicer. So this is quite a high climb speed. I mean, through 320 knots. I get people asking that the 321 seems to climb slowly for them. And is it realistic, and is it how the real airplane does? Well, a heavy 321, which this isn't really, but a heavy 321 is going to climb not that well, especially when you get up above flight level 200. It's got those, relatively small wings and so on. It's not like a 319. It does have higher rated engines, so they aren't exactly the same engines as 319 and 320. They can run to a higher power, which is why we see different flex settings. We see these lower temperatures in the 321. So it does have a lot of power. So if you can't climb to your optimum or anything like that, then that's not right. And I believe ToLiss have said that there is an issue with that in their forum. There's too much drag above decimal 75, so it needs to be worked on. But anyway, because of this, I'm going to change the cost index to something a bit more reasonable. I wouldn't normally climb at 325 knots. That seems a bit high. So if we go to cost index 0, and as I've said before, that number should just drop straight down. It would just, there we go. We'll get a more reasonable speed, yeah, 310. That'll probably keep coming down. Should be somewhere 270 to 300 knots, something like that. Otherwise, we'll spend all day waiting to get up into our cruise phase. This is good as well. Engine anti-ice memo is still there, and we get this other memo, ice not decked. Well, I've never seen that in the Airbuses I've flown. Quite a fancy feature. Not all Airbuses have ice detectors, so they have this spigot here, which we can look at to see if there's ice in the aeroplane, but not all of them actually have any instrument that will tell you, and I'm guessing the ToLiss does, which is why it has that memo to tell us it's not detecting any ice. But you'd be amazed how many Airbuses don't need that. You just look, and if you're in the right conditions, you'll turn on the anti-ice and be ready for it. Just getting a notification, YouTube's not happy now. It's not receiving enough video. Hopefully you guys aren't seeing too much buffering or any problems like that on your end. I'm still maintaining my visual 20 frames per second. So I'm going to have to sort this out for next time. I promise I'll work on it, guys. Thank you for sticking with it. I'm sure it's frustrating for you guys. Captain FR, I'm shooting for at least 50 FPS. Yeah, absolutely, me too. That would be ideal. It's a shame about the TCAS as well, because it looked like we had that working for a little bit there, but that seems to have failed. I imagine if we were flying around in Cav OK, I might get away with it with the frame rate, but we're going to have to do some other investigating to work this out. One advantage for us today is going to be that we can just get ourselves into Amsterdam wherever we feel like. There we go. So yeah, that was 260. Excellent. At some point in the cruise, you'd start looking up your fuel figures and check nothing's pouring out of the airplane or anything silly like that. So we've got 1,300 kilos used. If we add that onto what we've got left, so 7.7, so that'd be 8.7 plus 300, so that's 9 tons. Well, that's what we're left with. If this number was, if that number was too high, we might find that we've got a bit of a leak or something like that. So if any of these numbers don't add up, you've got to do some serious fuel investigating. Thanks, Michael, for the comments. That's good to know. Good. Yeah, it's amazing how much processing power this must take, really, especially with all these nice, like I say, volumetric clouds out there. Yeah, so here we go. 23,000 feet, doing 1,800 feet per minute at 280 knots. That's not too bad. Not too bad at all. I think if you're used to the 737, my understanding, although this is not, I've not flown the 737, someone else might be able to help me if they have, the 737 climbs faster than this, so they would get held up by an Airbus in front of them in the climb. I don't think there's much difference in the cruise speed, but I know the 737 can go higher. Our maximum is 390. Today we're too heavy for that. Our maximum here is 374, so we can't even do that. Almost at 1,000 feet to go, so we'll just watch the level off. In real life, very important, we treat level offs quite seriously, so we'll always try and sit in and watch them. I appreciate when I'm doing these videos, I often end up nattering about something else, talking about some other topic, trying to fit it all in. There we go, around the turn. Sorry, yeah, it is easy to get distracted, but the one thing we don't, headings and so on are very important, obviously, especially when you're talking about terrain. Up here, our big thing is going to be our vertical separation from other aeroplanes. We just don't want to get that wrong. Air traffic will be very upset with us. Speed out star, excellent, and it should go into out cruise straight from out star. Someone said to me, or said in the comments, why don't you go out cruise? Excellent. And so why don't you go to these optimums? Well, they're optimums, but they're not always ideal. That would give us a very short cruise segment, and then we'll be straight back down again. It might not be practical. Air traffic might not like it. That sort of thing. It could just be the wrong flight level for your direction. So we're heading to the west. So heading east we'd do an odd flight level. Heading west we'd do an even. So we have to go maybe to 360. The other thing is, in these smaller Airbuses, it's quite normal to be near your maximum, and that would be fine. In the 321, we don't like to get too close to it. So anything within 1,500 feet of that, you'll see that your speed tape, you'd have the overspeed and the low speed would be very close to each other. Especially if you were at that. I would never plan to fly. For example, if we wanted to cruise at 370 and then we took off and we saw this, then I wouldn't go to 370. And most people would. If you found any sort of turbulence, you'd get yourself nearly over or under speeding very easily. Excellent. Right, what are we doing? It's still just sitting at exactly 20. Let's see, what can we do about this? Let's try and connect it. I suspect it's just going to boot us out again. We'll try VATSIM. We're transmitting on 1228, and if it disappears, it disappears. We'll just go from there. No, it's already not happy. Fine, we'll stop worrying about that. Sorry guys, I was hoping to have a bit of fun entering the hold and so on into Amsterdam, which I thought would be quite crazy. I can't imagine they're running on one runway. I wonder if part of the issue is the way I've got my YouTube set up in a different tab. There could be all sorts of things here. Might as well do that. Still sitting at 20. No. Fine. No problem. Okay, right, so we're going to do this ourselves. We'll get ourselves into Amsterdam. I'm sure we can achieve that. So let's clear out the charts. Right, let's have a look at the chat quickly. What have we got going on? How often do things go wrong when flying in real life? No, good question. Well, hopefully and generally very, very rarely. I can't give any numbers or speak for any real life sort of statistics or anything like that. I mean, you can look it up. You can see reports online and so on about things that have happened and any sort of incident. Okay, let's have a look. I understand my audio is not quite set right. Let's see if I can improve that for you. Okay, hopefully that's a bit better for you guys. Keep the feedback coming. I keep working on it. Yeah, so and it depends what you mean by going wrong as well. If it's, you know, getting high on the profile and having to correct it, or if it's a system malfunction of the aeroplane, which happens rarely. I think the ToLiss has a system in it that lets you set that. If we go to the ToLiss ICS fault scenarios, and it's got this, and you can increase the amount of faults, so you can have the factor higher than it would be in real life, which would sort of ensure you'd see some sort of fault during your flight. I am going to do some videos about that sort of thing at some point, so we'll get an idea of how we handle failures on the real aeroplane. But in terms of going wrong, I mean, that I don't think that would qualify as going wrong as much as just being a bit of something we'd have to deal with. I suppose it increases your workload a bit. Okay, oh, we are really struggling. I suspect it's loading up an airport nearby. Okay, right, so yeah, get rid of these charts, something you would do in advance. Oh, we got Fly24 giving us some great 737 knowledge there. 737 is flight level 410 ceiling for sure and climb speed 300, although it struggles near 410. Well, I mean, 300 up to 410 is pretty good. Pretty good. That's certainly more than we could do, seeing as we're going to have to stop at 39 anyway. Right, let's get our charts Amsterdam. And this is a great thing, this AviTab plugin, and the plugins for X-Plane in general have been really impressive. I'm really, really pleased with it. I'm getting just need to sort out this engine noise. Right. Okay, EHAM, Schiphol. Next. Loads and loads of runways. Now, compared to Frankfurt, you see all these runways and all these charts. Let's get rid of Frankfurt. But the magic is, if we go to arrivals, there's hardly any charts because they've got them all organised in a way that they pretty much fit in from each direction onto one chart, which is just really handy. So we're coming in via Norku. Norku, below flight level 280, above flight level 200. Robus, Oscar to RTIP to hold. Let's check. I love this lighting. This is absolutely great in X-Plane. Really impressed with it. So let's zoom right in. Plan. Yep, enter desk data. That comes up as you get near the top of descent to warn you that you haven't done it. And there's our Norku Oscar RTIP where we would hold, but I'm not going to bother with that today because we know we're not going to do it. I've given up on VATSIM for today, so I do apologise for that. But yeah, there we go. RTIP is... Why would I hold at RTIP? Well, obviously, you've got that drawn, and it says IAF, so we can't go past initial approach fixes until we're given clearance from air traffic control. So that is quite a restriction, really. That's it. We would have to enter the hold unless we hear otherwise. So if you haven't managed to talk to air traffic yet, you need to go into the hold, really, before you can carry on. What was the weather doing there? And which runway can we expect? 3306. Excellent. So let's have a look at our expected approach. I was hoping, and I left this totally blank because I was sort of expecting a help from air traffic control to guide us on this airport. I don't know. What do you guys reckon is going to be our eventual arrival? Here we go. Massive airport. Fantastic. I'm going to land on... It's great having pick, isn't it? Let's say... Is 36 right available with an ILS? Let's have a look. Approach. ILS. I've never, ever done that. 36 center, RLS localizer 36 right. There we go. We'll take it. So we'll head south, round and in, and then we'll come in onto this one, which takes us right to the terminal. So it'll be a shorter taxi. Landing on this runway 36 left or 18 right. It's a long old taxi, good 20 plus minutes to get yourself parked. Excellent. So let's load in the weather. Now that destination, load destination weather message we had on the FMGC, it seems a bit trivial to have that warning come up, but it's actually quite important. We have to have this QNH entered, and you get this amber box because it is required. The airplane does want to know it. The reason is it uses that in the depressurization of the cabin. So we've got our cabin pressurization in auto, landing elevation auto, so that's from the FMGC, and it will plan its profile according to the QNH and pressure on the ground in your destination. So let's get that in. 1017. Temperature of 14. 3306. You put in the wind for ground speed mini. Some of you may know what that is already. I'm going to do a video on it at some point because it's quite an important feature of the Airbus. It's quite unique. Effectively, if the wind is higher on approach than it is on the ground, it will add that difference. So it will increase our approach speed so that we don't lose energy late on in the approach, which is obviously safer. It does mean that we might end up catching up with airplanes in front of us. Let's revert to minimums. Let's see what they have. And we're going to be a Cat C today, so that's 217. There we go, got our minimum in. And in here I would put in the go around altitude, because if we have an engine failure and we go around, we're going to climb to the stop altitude for the go around, but that's not modelled yet in the ToLiss. Again, I've looked on the forum and they are working on that one. Okay, what else would we do? Well, we'd have done a systems check when we got up here, and then we'll finish up our little hat for the loading. So let's get down here. And we start, just press any of the systems, then we can just cycle through them by pressing all. All looking good there. The reality is, any of these systems, if they have a problem, they'll show up here as advisory, or you'll get an ECAM warning. So you're just looking to see if anything starts to go a bit strange, or you see a sudden drop in a hydraulic fluid, something like that. But again, it's really very rare. All looking good. Wheels are nice and cold, so the brakes will be absolutely fine. Not all Airbuses show you the pressure here, and flight controls are good. Although a lot of Airbuses do show you the temperature. You should see the temperature in the fuel tanks. Quite important. There is a minimum temperature we can have the fuel at, so you don't want to get that too cold. Quite hard to get it that cold. You'd have to be flying for a long time, very high up on a very cold day. But still, something you do need to be able to monitor. So I'm surprised it's not there. Okay, so as for my tutorial video, we do the hats. So we've looked through our Norca arrival, and let's go to the plan page, check that looks sensible. Norca, which takes us via RTIP. Oh, God. Well, there we go. That's why we're doing this. I haven't got anything close to the right runway. It's amazing what I thought I had it. Right, 36 right. Norca to Alpha. Captain Ryanair, have you flown to St Helena Airport? It's a small airport and Airbus flies there. No, I haven't. I have not actually. And hello to Svati as well, if that's pronounced how that should be pronounced. I'll go to Alpha. And if we zoom out, we'll get a good idea of what... I would always do this. I'd zoom out so we can see what we're doing early on. With no VIA, that looks perfect. In the dream world, that would be our arrival, wouldn't it? We just want to get straight in. We don't want to have to do any sort of holding or circling. Great. Go arounds, we'll check that as well. So I'll compare this with the charts. How close are we to top of descent? Got to get back to ARC for that. Still got 40 miles. Typically, you'd start preparing. I'd say you'd want to be briefing and have all this set up by sort of 80 miles to go to that top of descent, if not sooner. So maybe 120 miles, something like that. So I'm actually, as usual in these videos, running behind. So let's see what we get through. Missed approach, climb track 003. Well, I can see that, track 003, and this light blue means it's our missed approach. To 1,500 feet. Classic Amsterdam, low level of altitude for the go-around there, which makes our life difficult, as I showed in my go-around tutorial video. Inform ATC immediately. At 2.8 north of the Sierra Papa Lima VOR, climb to 2,000 feet. Interesting. So, 2 level restrictions there. So which one do we fly? Well, I'm going to set 1,500 feet initially, and then I'm going to wait until I pass the 2.8, and then I'm going to set 2,000 feet. So yeah, 1,500 first. Do not overshoot the initial altitude of 1,500. That's good, actually. They give you a warning. Not all airports do that. So they must have had, I imagine the reason that note is there is people have, I don't know, but I would imagine people have overshot that altitude. It'd be very easy to, because that is very low, and these airplanes have a lot of extra performance in the go around. Let's tune the ILS up. Now, I've shown this in my videos as well. The ToLiss tunes it quite late. I'd expect it to already be in there. We'll check that as we get later on in the approach, but it should be tuned with the right course already, but we know it isn't for now. Otherwise, I don't really need anything else tuned. The DME's with the ILS, as far as I can tell. I'm not entirely used to these Jefferson charts, I must admit, so do please correct me if you think I've done something wrong. Because it could be using the Sierra Papa Lima DME. So what I can do to make sure I've got that, I'll put Sierra Papa Lima into the right hand side, and then I'm going to have VOR displayed there. So with these little switches here, you can see you can have 2, so we'll have number 2 displayed, and that will give us a backup DME. But as you all know, my favourite way to judge the distance to the threshold is going to be just simply typing it in. No point making our life difficult. EHAM 36 right into there, it's 100 miles away, excellent, and that will be accurate to the threshold. Performance, well, we already started that, put in the weather. Config full landing, yeah, absolutely. Low auto brake, because we don't want to vacate the runway too early. We're going to scoot along. Fuel prediction, extra fuel, yeah, we got loads of fuel, because I thought if we got one runway, we're definitely going to be in for some holding or some sort of strange arrival that would burn a lot of fuel. Amsterdam as well, because of the low altitudes, they tend to get you to level off quite low quite early, so you can burn a lot of fuel that way. You end up flying level segments. We like to try and do continuous descents, but it's just not always possible. Places like this, busy airports, they need you out the way of other aircraft usually. So brilliant, we've got 3 tons extra, 3.2 tons extra with the final reserve of 1.3. So we want to land always with that, but that 3.2 should account for our diversion as well. So at the moment, how much are we landing with? Yeah, 6.4. I mean, that is a lot of fuel to be landing with. You have to be careful in the Airbus. If you land with more than 6 tons, some of this fuel could be touching the top of the wings, and in certain conditions, that could then get ice forming on it, which we can't have. So we don't like to, in winter, have too much fuel when we land. In summer, it's not such an issue because the fuel temperature would be too high for that to become a problem, really. Great. And secondary, I'm just going to do a copy. We know the plan can't change. It's our plan. Brilliant. We're going to get ourselves in. Lexi says, Sierra Papa Lima is my favourite VOR. Well, excellent. We are going to feature it today. There it is. Sierra Papa Lima 184, the DME. So I think I'm right in saying that then is the DME for this approach. They've got loads and loads of writing on this little profile here. Although ABAD, no, it does have its own ILS DME. There we go. No, of course, I'm talking nonsense. It is written there, so we don't need to use the SPL, but we'll have it as a backup anyway. What else do we need to check then? We've done our little hats. Person who's walking around. Go to that. We've entered the destination data. I'll probably have that on progress page about now. Hi Pavel, thank you for joining us. It's great to have so many people viewing. I can't believe it. I really thought it would just be me sat here struggling through VATSIM on my own. So thank you all for coming. And again, I'm sorry we're not in VATSIM at the moment. I will get that sorted for next time, I hope. Hardware permitting. We all know the struggles of trying to get flight simulators to work well on our home computers. What else did I want to discuss? The arrival. Let's check that this is all going to work out. So, flight plan, and in reality in Amsterdam you would certainly be vectored, but we're going to have to make this up, so I want to check that this is all sort of sensible. It's quite a tight turn there, you see. So RTIP, it wants us to be an RTIP at flight level 100. That seems reasonable. And as I said before, this profile, the Airbus calculates based on a decelerated ILS. So that's the sort of ILS where we configure as we go down the ILS. It can be a bit fast at times. You have to be careful with it. So you have to make sure that it's not going to be too quick for you to manage. So you don't want to rely on it. You want to have your own numbers in your head. And this is what I mean. This isn't going to work at all, I don't think, to have this Echo Hotel 636, 2,000 feet. I mean, so the right altitude, which is our platform, 2,000 feet platform, so a low platform, and it wants us to from there descend to 635. So that's going to be too tight. So we'll take ourselves onto some sort of vector, and I can give you guys a bit of an idea of sort of height and distances as we get closer in that we would expect in real life, and that what we can use ourselves when we are flying around in Flight Simulator without VATSIM to give us the nice comforting feeling of telling us what to do. Something that we see sometimes in a really quiet airport late at night, that sort of thing, you might get told that, you know, how many track miles do you want? So it's good to know these things. You need to be aware yourself of what you want the airplane to be doing, because air traffic may just give you straight in. Some airports, they don't expect you to ever have problems with the height. They'll just vector you straight in, and if you're too high, you have to tell them and realize they won't ask you or give you any warning of it. Some airports, they're nicer than that, and they'll warn you, or they'll ask, okay, can you make this height? Here we go then, top of descent. We get our decelerate message. Really, you'd have asked for descent a little bit earlier, and I'm going to say all the way down to flight level 100. There we go. And seeing as we're high, how do we get down when we're high? Well, thrust idle open descent. That's going to be my favourite way. I get the most control over the airplane. And then I can just wind on the speed. So now I'm in open descent. We just get thrust idle. Excellent. I know a lot of you guys know this already, so I'm just sort of talking through it as we go anyway. But there we go. Let's add some speed onto that. So 320 knots, not unreasonable in the descent. I've had questions about vertical speed and its use. So in this scenario we see here, no, I wouldn't use vertical speed. We've got a long way to go. If air traffic control had told me I need you to descend now, but you don't have to descend fast or anything like that, you just have to descend now, and it was before I wanted to descend, but then in that circumstance I would select a vertical speed, trickle it down. I wonder what our frame rate's doing now. 21. Yeah, it's funny, like I say, I would expect 30 to 40, maybe 50 if I was really lucky. I suspect the computer's trying to do too much on its own. And look at that, idle thrust, we've gone straight through our profile that easily. It's amazing how much drag the airplane gets. The reason this works is because the faster you go, the more drag you've got. So we're just going to accelerate down. So I don't need to be doing that anymore. In fact, I could just go to managed. There we go. And there's probably some of you sitting there and in your mind just thinking, well, why on earth doesn't he just let the airplane do it? And yeah, I agree now actually. Let's just do that. Let's go to 1 dot, click. Speed, des. And it will regain the profile. It should slow down for us. You might hear a cat meowing who has come to join in and be a very noisy companion. Okay, where are we? And flight 24, Zurich runway 28 is always mental. Yeah, Zurich is a fun airport to fly into. It's got lots of different arrivals, lots of terrain around. We'll have to do a flight there one day. I think that would be good fun. And I know they do some VATSIM events there. I don't know what else you guys like to see. Anyone got any other airports? So St. Helena, if I'm pronouncing that right, was one recommendation. There's obviously Skiathos and places where they do take 321s. I don't know if that's the same one, maybe. And I've been thinking about some places where we wouldn't take a 321, like Gibraltar or Belfast City. These sorts of places typically don't use. They'll use the smaller Airbus family. So yeah, let me know. And thanks again, guys, for all coming along for this. Let's see, anyone else got any questions? No, it's great to see all the usual names from the from the channel. Fantastic. So let's start talking energy and height. So if I look here, I know it's not a very clear view, but I can get a sense that I'm 60 miles away from Amsterdam airport in a straight line. I'm at 18,000 feet. So if you times this by 3, that will give you a good idea of how many miles you need. So we're sitting here at 18. So I'd need to do 18 times 3. And as always with my terrible math skills, that's going to be 54 miles. So we need 54 miles from here. If it was 20,000 feet, then we need 60 miles. That's an absolute basic way of saying, okay, I'm fine. I'm roughly on profile. But I can't just take that minimum of 54. I then need a few extra miles to slow down and configure the airplane. So if I was doing 330 knots at this distance, then I would have more time to slow down. But the plus side of being 330 knots is that I would descend faster. So that 3 degrees is a good guideline to be on. Especially here, although it's 60 miles or slightly less now straight in to get my actual distance, it's 56 miles, there we go. I said I need 54, a bit less now, about 50 miles. Well, I've actually got extra mileage because I've got to go the wrong way slightly, and then I've got to turn in and then turn back down the ILS. So I can look at my flight plan page and get the actual distance that I'm going to fly at 66 miles. And today we know that is what we're going to fly, so we can rely on that. The reality obviously would be that we would have to adjust that depending on what we thought air traffic would do. So air traffic might cut you in tighter if this was a long arrival or a long star, that sort of thing. So you just gotta keep monitoring it. Okay, we're getting later on in the descent now. How long to landing? We can look here, 12:41, 26. Oh, we've got another 5 minutes, so we don't need to tell the cabin crew anything yet. It's not that busy of an airplane. That would be an airline SOP as well as to when you would actually alert the cabin crew to landing. There's all sorts of different procedures out there, as I'm sure you guys know. And as always, none of this is associated with any actual airline. I know I'm in a Lufthansa Airbus, but that's just for the nice livery and the routes. There we go, it's a bit of a wing view. Yeah, really impressed with this. I don't have any other X-Plane add-ons, so if you guys know of something better for the Airbus, but as far as I'm aware, this is pretty much the top end of the A321 add-ons, certainly, and it's yeah, I've been really impressed with it. I particularly like, it took me a while to find these views, but yeah, look at that, fantastic. Get that nice reflection of all the rivets in the wing. Brilliant. What about Samos? I don't know where that is, Giorgio. Could you give me the ICAO code and I'll have a look up. Thanks for joining us today. And Pavel, what company did you fly on A321? I'm afraid I'm not going to share that, just to keep it some sort of privacy for it, obviously. So we'll just keep enjoying whatever airline we like to use in X-Plane for the day. But thanks for coming along. Look at this, fantastic. Really happy with this livery. I should and I will add to the description of this video the person who made this, because I think they definitely deserve a credit. Fly24, who's in the comments there every now and then, they wrote that music that you would have heard at the introduction and in my new channel intro. I've gone for a bit of a bold colour strategy on the channel, so I hope it's not burning into your screens too much, that magenta sort of magenta pink progress bar at the top. There we go then. So, as I said, we can't go past RTIP until we talk to air traffic control. But today, there is none. It's still really struggling. Even though there's no weather. That is very frustrating. But there we go. So we're going to head straight off and go over there. Excellent. We can see this little pink magenta dot here. That's the first decel. So at that dot, it's going to decelerate from its target speed here, which is 280. What's that? 286, something like that, 288. And it's going to decelerate to 250 to meet this restriction. And that should normally be at flight level 100. So even if there was no speed restriction here, the airplane would know when it's going to pass below flight level 100. So before it gets there, it will reduce if you're in managed speed. So we'll let it do that and then carry on this. There you go. No terrain issues in Amsterdam, obviously. Here we are at R-tip, and it is fantastically low, as Amsterdam is famous for, 1,700 feet. I suppose we should come up with somewhere to go and park as well. So go to our airport charts. Airports. I'm thinking we're going to land on 36 right. Vacate Echo 2 would be the plan with this break. And there we go, leveled off. As I said, in real life, we'd monitor that very carefully. Once again, I'm drawn away into my charts. I think we'll just park on the north side here of this pier. I think that'll work for us. We'll just bring up parking stands ready for that. So Echo 2, and then take a left turn. So it'd be second left, and then a right turn. We'll take Delta. Let's try Delta 51. I'll write that down before you see me immediately forget. I've had no luck with AutoGate, I must confess, guys. I know it doesn't work with default scenery, so it won't work here. But I haven't managed to get it to work at Heathrow or anything like that where I have scenery. So I'm going to keep trying. It seems to be one of those things that I just doesn't seem to click with my brain. But I have got the plugin somewhere, and I've got the SAM, which came with the Heathrow Manchester. So have a look at the chat. What have we got? Pavel says, okay, yeah, thanks very much, Pavel. Michael, when you're planning out dest in MCDU, do you put a departure from the original dest? Alternate destination. Is that asking about the alternates? Michael, so do you mean how would I have an alternate destination now in the MCDU? It's a good question. I'll just wait for you to clarify which one you mean, and because that's my fault. Sorry. And Captain FR, how do you do an autopilot on the ToLiss? LGSM from Georgios. Thank you, Georgios. LGSM, I'll write that down. Have a look another day. Yeah, great. If you have any way you want to see, keep the comments going. I can't promise, obviously, but I will do my best to work through it all. I mix it up with the tutorials and the flights. I really enjoy the flights. It's obviously, I am a pilot, and this is what I love to do. I enjoy the tutorials as well, but I like to mix it up. Give myself a chance to just sort of fly a nice little route. So here we are, getting high again, because I haven't got air traffic telling me what to do. I'm being a typical pilot here. So let's say we're cleared down to flight level 40, thrust idle, open descent. As we go below flight level 100, we do a few extra things. We'll get the LS. So we get our ILS displayed on the PFD. There we go. I'm going to turn on the landing lights in case there's any VFR traffic around on such a lovely Sunday afternoon. Very well could be. Shouldn't be in our airspace, but you never know, just in case they wander out. Make ourselves visible. I'm going to check that the airplane is still accurate. GPS primary. We're not flying an RNAV or anything like that, so we could manage without the GPS now. In fact, we could manage without this. We'd just start flying headings instead, even if this navigation display started to struggle for any reason. But luckily today, it is working for us. And I've got two of those charts open. Of course, I knew I'd done that. So there we go. Right. Yeah. So, how do you auto? So, Captain FR, how do you do an autopilot on the ToLiss? Are you talking about an auto land? And Michael said yes. Okay. So Michael's question earlier, for those that might have missed it, we were talking about how do we set up a secondary? Would I have to do a new flight? Simply put, no. I can select a waypoint and then new destination. So if I was going to divert to Heathrow now, the simplest way in the primary flight plan, I can just go next to a point, new destination, and type it in. I won't do it now because if I do, it'll just dump all of this, and we'll have a pretty empty box. And a big thing you don't want to do in the Airbus or any modern jet, as it's flying along at 250 knots, 7,000 feet from the ground, is to start both of you staring down into the box. But obviously, I end up doing it in these videos anyway, because it's just there's quite a lot for one person to do. It's sort of reassuring, I suppose, to see that we still need two pilots a lot of the time to get through all these bits and bobs. Richard V. Hi all. Sorry I'm late. Didn't know this was on. No problem, Richard. Thanks for coming along. It's great to see so many of you here. The classic crowd from my channel. I'm really chuffed that you've all joined us. Richard, I put up this stream very late. It was I wasn't sure I'd have everything ready, and I put it all together. And I know it's just a few hours' notice. But welcome. Thanks for coming. As you may have noticed, we're not on VATSIM. We had a problem with the frame rate, so that's got to be solved for a future stream. I sort of anticipated this just being a bit of a test to see if we could get everything going. I didn't think so many people would come along, so thank you all for being here. Pavel says, some call it MCDU, some like MUCDU. Why? Well, as you can imagine, there's so many different acronyms in aviation that some people just can't resist changing it into a nice little comforting sounding word. So MUCDU, yeah, is quite common. The box, another very common way to refer to it. And it is a form of FMS, although I know the Boeing, we call it the FMS and we call it the MCDU. So I'd say if we were just chatting as pilots, we would talk about it as the box typically. Have you done the box? That sort of thing. Or I'm just going to look at the box. As formal settings in training, that we would end up talking about it as the MCDU. Here we go. So Amsterdam has low flight levels. Sometimes down to 40 depends on the transition level, but today it's obviously not. So we're going to set up our QNH 1017. Do that. Now in real life, you would be cleared to an altitude, not to a flight level. So the transition level is 60. I think that's a bit high for Amsterdam, to be honest. But as I said, without the VATSIM, that's my excuse for not catching that in time. If you had a low QNH, so if this QNH was like 990, something like that, this transition level would then be raised, because when we convert to altitude, you'd actually be lower than you realized on a flight level. Captain FR, hopefully you keep doing the live stream. Thanks very much. Well, I hope you guys are enjoying it. It's something slightly different, and I thought it'd be quite a fun way to get some interaction going, because that's been a great part of the videos I've done so far. What's the temperature? Do we need engine ice? No, TAT is 15, so we don't need it for these little bits of wispy clouds. Speed out star. Okay, so this is where it's easy to forget how close in you are. As I said, we're going to vector ourselves now. So I'm just going to head on 180 south on a sort of downwind, but we've got 5 miles across to the airport. Let's now pretend air traffic's vectoring us. So they put us on this heading. Let's make that heading 200, otherwise we'll be too far away. Heading 200 from air traffic control. And I want to draw out this centre line now, because I could leave it as it is and just arm the ILS and we'll fly over our two-way point. But it is important in the Airbus that we sequence the flight plan properly. And one typical way of doing that would be what I'm about to do here. So let's check we get the right radial. It is 003. So the reciprocal is going to be 183. Put that as radial in, and now I select the point, so I want it from the 636, so select that, 183, insert, and it's failed because it's sequenced to the next one, but that would normally just draw out a straight line, in which we can use. I could do it again, but I'm not going to fiddle with it anymore, because it's not that important. We've got it sequenced. What I am going to do is descend to 2,000 feet, which is our platform, and I get asked about the vertical speed a lot. I think Richard asked about it in the last one as well. Yeah, now we're in this sort of area, I'm going to use vertical speed, because if I just start using open descent and we go to idle, we'll get big changes and up and down, and it's not very comfortable. It's not very good for speed control. And if air traffic control wanted a speed, let's say they told us now 180 knots, which would be quite typical, then it would be hopeless doing it at open descent, because it would just ruin our vertical profile in our minds. It's not impossible. For example, vertical speed of 1,000 is probably a bit too much now. The airplane isn't slowing down. So if I go to open descent, it will slow down a bit more. If I was high, that would be no good, and I'd use the speed brakes. But we see we're coming into the profile now. Distance to the runway, 9 miles. So I'm going to get myself 10 miles. 3,000 feet would be a typical sort of profile to be on. I'm at 3,000 feet at 10 miles now, so I could probably start turning towards the airfield. So let's put ourselves on an intercept heading. Nice easy numbers here. If we go to 275, that's going to be roughly towards Schiphol. Definitely time to start configuring, and we've got 1,000 feet to our level off. So flaps 1. There we go. And I'm going to go back to vertical speed because I want to control that to myself. 600 feet per minute, yep. Let it keep slowing down. And how far out are we now? 11 miles out from the ILS. So we're plenty low on profile, really. So I could do 500 feet per minute. I would try not to level off, seeing as we got that luxury today. So once we got this 2.1R, so we're 2 miles right of this track. It shows you this distance. So when I get to about 1.5 with a light headwind, which is there, I'm going to put my intercept heading. So I know it's effectively 360. It's north, isn't it? So let's go to 330. I'll check it's identified again. So yeah, it is definitely identified. Let's arm the approach and put in both the autopilots. And then we check that it's armed, glide slope and localizer there, autopilot 1 and 2. We're really low on the profile. I might even cheat a bit more. There's our radio altimeter coming alive at 2,500 feet, which matches the QNH, or it matches our altimeter, so we know our QNH is correct, which is great. And lock star, perfect. 10 miles out, 2,500 feet, so we're below profile, absolutely fine. And I'm going to go flat 2. Now, there's nothing to stop us flying like this, 180 below the S speed. It's just not very comfortable. And you'll see if I put up flat 2, it looks a lot nicer. We get rid of that VLS beneath us. Right, that should have happened earlier. I knew I'd forget something. There we go. There it was. Thanks, Richard. Yep. Difference between MDA and DH in the MCDU from Georgia. That's a good question. I'll have to talk about it another time. Let's focus up on this, actually. Remind me again later, or certainly it'll appear in other videos. But today, MDA, basically, because we're not flying, we're not doing that based on the radio altimeter. We're basing it on the actual altimeter. So we put it in as an MDA. You'd certainly want to be flat 2 by the time you're on the glide slope, especially somewhere like Amsterdam. In fact, I'd want to be 160 now because we're 7 miles out, so 160 flat 2 on the glide slope is a good place to be. In the Airbus, typically you want to be flat 2 at the latest 2,000 feet above the runway. If you were flying level, like we were almost, then you could leave flat 2 until a bit later. But there we go. Glide slope star. Now we'll put in our going altitude. Select that to the left so we can get to 1,500. There it is. Really low. 6 miles out. Time to configure, I think. Let's not mess this up. Gear down. Give the cabin a ding. Get those lights on and arm the spoilers. I'm going to manage the speed. Let's check. Have I actually activated the approach phase? Yes. You would actually, a lot of airlines will get you to check that earlier than this point. Because it's quite important. Because if I hadn't activated it and the flight plan wasn't sequenced, oh, wrong button, and the flight plan wasn't sequenced, the airplane would just accelerate, which would be not very clever. Okay, the speed is good. Let's go flap 3 and flap full. That should be the last of it, really. We're visual. We're obviously clear to land, so a lot of pilots will put a little marker in here to remind them that they've been cleared to land. Excellent. So, ECAM memo is all good. We're clear to land. We've got the go-around altitude set. The flight plan is sequenced. And we've got loads of fuel, 6.3 tons of fuel. So those are all nice places to be. So we've got a bit of awareness about what could happen if we have to go around. Yep, as usual, I do enjoy the scenery. What is our FPS? 23? Yeah, it's definitely lower than it would be if I was just recording myself normally. There's 1,000 feet on the radio altimeter, or the QNH as well. So depending on the airline, that will change which one you use. But a lot of airlines will have you stable at 1,000 feet. If we didn't have the gear or the flaps by now, we'd go around. But we do. Let's see what I've possibly forgotten myself. That just goes nose wheel to taxi for landing. In case anyone's wondering, it's called taxi and takeoff. You put it to takeoff just for takeoff, really. It's just a lot brighter, but we don't need it for landing. Okay, right. Autopilot off. A few of you asked, when do you do that in real life? Well, any time, really. Could have done it further back if I wasn't doing it myself. Certainly would do. In real life, on a nice day like this, it's quite nice to have it a bit of hand flying. There's our land memo, so the Airbus is all working okay in the background. And you barely have to touch the side stick. If it was all trimmed out, which obviously it is by default, the Airbus trims for you. You don't want to make any big corrections at the last minute. You make your life very difficult. Oh, let's see if I can get this right. A little bit high over the threshold. Idle thrust, hold it there. Oh, that's going to be a bit of a bounce. Hold it, and there we go, reverse. Yeah, so reverse green, decel, we got the auto brake working. You do get the decel light there, but what we really want to see is a deceleration on the PFD. It doesn't actually matter if we're not looking at the light, it's just a backup. I don't know if you guys would have seen a landing rate overlay there. I really don't know. I'm just playing around with the stream. It was going to be pretty bad, I imagine, if it does. Yeah, there it is, 400. That would have been a pretty bad landing, I would imagine. As a result of that, well, not a terrible landing. It just, what I mean by bad is that it release the brakes, get ourselves to the right. What I mean by bad is that it resulted in a bit of a skip, so probably a little bit more sync than we wanted. If you get a skip like that, just hold the nose where it is, hold the airplane. You want to just let it settle on the runway. If it was any bigger, then you'd go around, obviously. If you're going to skip outside of the touchdown zone, you'd go around. But for that sort of thing, yeah, we just want to get ourselves gently settled within the touchdown zone. Great, and here we are. First one done. And I said we're going to take the second left. We don't want to blind all the other pilots, so taxi around, so that can go off. Get the APU starting. Don't need those anymore. Get that in. That can go to transponder. We don't need the TARA. And get the right charts. Excellent. A bit fast, slow it down. It's funny, after you land, it gets more difficult to judge the speed of the airplane because you've obviously been rolling down the runway at 200 miles an hour or more. So you have to be careful, and that ground speed readout there is very useful. Yeah, okay. So I've lowered the settings, so we've got almost no scenery around there. Right turn here. Let's keep it slow. Max wingspan 36, fine. That's us. We are within the 36 meter. A lot of airports have a 36 meter restriction because that typically allows 737s and Airbuses to go in. Obviously, the Airbus will have the same wingspan pretty much. So the Sharklets add a little bit, but it's still less than 36. And I wrote it down because I knew I'd forget. Delta 51. Oh, one more thing. There you go. See those strobes? If you leave them on auto, they will be off now, but they would have come on when we got in the air, even if we forgot. Delta 53, Delta 51. Okay, slow right down because it's a 90-degree turn. Turn off the last lights because they would upset the ground crew and blind them. And bring ourselves around. A bit of oversteering. If it was raining, you do this very slowly. It's amazing how easy the Airbus nose wheel can slide on those painted lines. Nice and gently. Yeah, and as I said earlier, guys, I'm still struggling with AutoGate. So if we get this line in between the screens, that should be on the center line. So there it is. Let's have a look. Yeah, not bad at all. But I know AutoGate won't work here in Amsterdam because it's default scenery. But yeah, I'll see if I can get that improving. Let's get the nose wheel onto one of them. Which one should we pick? Let's go for the last one. Why not? Shorter walk for the passengers, eh? That's what they need. And there we go. Yeah, it's quite hard to judge that in real life. Parking brake sets. You don't want to stand on the brakes, especially if the passengers are up and about, or certainly they shouldn't be, but the cabin crew might be. Fans for these. Well, it's a short taxi in. While the engines are running and the beacon light is on, the ground crew won't approach the airplane. So I'm going to put the fans on now because that's pretty hot, and that way it will blow the dust out, but the ground crew are not near the airplane yet. Okay, APU is definitely available. Let's shut down the engines. Still got the parking brake, still got the APU. Passengers can get going. Now we want the M1 to slow down. About 10%. There we go. Beacon going off, and now you'll see the ground crew all coming in with their chocks and so on. And here we are. Right, fantastic. Thank you all for joining me on this flight today. Here we are in our lovely livery. Again, I'm sorry we're not surrounded by other airplanes, having had a adventure with air traffic control. But thank you so much for joining anyway and interacting and asking the questions. I'll be planning to do more of these. I'll just have to work on the FPS. Thanks, Pavel. Yeah, I'll have a look for some tutorials to see if I can improve it and get it running a bit better. Captain FR, yeah, I think my GPU's 6 gigabytes, so it can be difficult. Right on the centre line. Yeah, brilliant. I enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll go back to that question about the MDA-DH. Basically, if we're doing an ILS like this, we are doing it down to Cat 1 minima, then we'll use the MDA. It's altitude. If we were using it for low vis stuff, then we would use a radio altimeter one, which would be the H. It's a height. It's a height above the ground. Enjoyed the stream from Don Jones, real world Embraer legacy pilot, getting back into flight sim while we're off work. Brilliant, Don. Thank you so much for coming along. And yeah, that's pretty much why I'm here as well, just enjoying it. And that's why I do these flights as well as the tutorials, just to give us something to get our teeth stuck into and to get surrounded by aviation. And it's great to have so many of you guys and gals enjoying it as well. And Lexi, thank you very much. I will try and give more notice for the next one so that we can have a bit of a time for you guys to be aware at least that it's on, because I know this one was a bit out of the blue. I guess I'll sign it off as always. Obviously none of this was real world use, it's just my opinions and just a bit of fun on Flight Simulator. Hopefully it gave you guys a little bit more context. Thank you for coming, all the usual crowds. Great to see you all here. I hope to see you in a future one soon. And yeah, keep safe and see you next time. Thanks very much.